Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, we're going to take a look at one other form for linear equations called point-slope form. Okay, so we've already gone over a couple of forms for linear equations. One form is standard form. We looked at a little bit before, where we have some value in front of y plus some value in front of x equals some number c. And we can change this to slope-intercept form by subtracting the x to both sides and then dividing by whatever we have in front of y. So that's standard form. We don't really work with it a lot. We also have already learned slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. If we have the slope and the y-intercept, we can quickly write our equation. Sometimes we'll be given some information, or we'll be in a situation where it's actually easier to use our last form, which is called point-slope form. Point-slope form involves, exactly as the name implies, involves one point and the slope. And that's all of the information that we need. So this is helpful when we have the slope, or we can easily find the slope, but we don't know the y-intercept, or the y-intercept is a little bit more difficult to find. So for example, let's say our point is x1 comma y1, so some x value, some y value, and our slope is m. Then the equation for point-slope form is going to be y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So here, all we need to do is plug in m, plug in the y values, and the x value and the y value, and then we have our equation. If you want to write it just in terms of y, we could just add the y1 to both sides. So you could also just do y equals m times x minus x1 plus y1. So either of these work out. Just plugging in the x and the y value and the slope. So for example, here we're given some information. We're given a point on our graph of 6, -5 down here, and we're given a slope of -2/3. So we could start with this point and then work our way up. Okay, we go up to the left 3, we have another point, and then we could keep going. We could also write the equation just using our point-slope format that we just learned about. So our point and our slope. Let's go ahead and use this equation here. We have y minus, well, our y value is -5. And as always, when we're plugging in negative numbers, we want to make sure that we use parentheses. So y minus -5 equals, our slope is -2/3 times x minus, our x value here is 6. Okay, so y plus 5 equals -2/3 times x minus 6. And there we go. We can actually be done here. So if we're just asked to write an equation, that's all of the work that we need to do. So if we're given a point and a slope, we can just plug in those values and then we're done. We don't have to try and work backwards on the graph and so on. One quick note that I want to make is we can actually simplify this, and if we simplify it, we actually end up with slope-intercept form. So let's take a quick look at simplifying this. So y equals -2/3 times x minus 6. I just subtracted 5 from both sides. Next, I'm going to distribute the -2/3. Y equals -2/3 times x minus -2/3 times 6 minus 5. We have -2/3 x, which makes sense because that is our slope. And then to the right here, if we subtract a negative, then we actually get a positive. So plus 2/3 times 6 is going to give us 4. You could do that in a calculator, or just multiply 2 by 6 and then divide by 3, and then minus 5. So y equals -2/3 times x minus 1. And this makes sense because if we look back at our graph on the left, if we were to keep working backwards, we would end up with up to the left 3, a y-intercept of -1. So our y-intercept is here, and our slope is here. So point-slope form is slope-intercept, but it's just written a little bit differently and not simplified as much. Okay, so that's one quick example where we're given a point and a slope. Sometimes we'll also be given 2 points, and it'll be easier to use point-slope form in this case than, again, try and work our way backwards and find the y-intercept. So in this example, we're given 2 points on our graph, and we're given -7, -5. Let's go ahead and plot that point, -7 on the x-axis here. We're also given a point of -4, -2. So right over here on our graph. Okay, let's actually do -5, -2. I think that's what I originally meant to write down, -5, -2. Okay, so our other point would actually be right here. Okay, so we have 2 points. We could do two things. We could try and do slope-intercept form, so find the slope and then find the y-intercept. We could also do point-slope form. And one thing to note about point-slope form is we already have a point, and we can choose either of these points to use in our equation. So all we need to find is our slope at this point, or at this part of the problem. So we're trying to find our slope. We can do that two ways. One way is to look at the graph, use the graph to help us out. We go up 3 to the right 2. So our slope is going to be m equals up 3 to the right 2, or 3/2. We could also use our slope equation, where m is equal to, we subtract the y values, so -2 minus -5, divided by -5 minus -7. Again, just making sure we use parentheses with our negatives. So -2, if we subtract a negative, we're adding a positive, so we're adding 5. -2 plus 5 is 3. Here, -5 minus -7. If we subtract a negative, we add 7. So -5 plus 7 is 2. So we end up with that same slope, 3/2. Okay, and now we could try and work and find the intercept. We could also just write our equation using our slope in one of our points. So let's go ahead and use this point right here. Y minus y1 equals our slope, 3/2, times x minus x1, -5. And again, if we wanted to, we could simplify y plus 2 equals 3/2 times x plus 5. And then at this point, we're actually done. So we're finished. We've written an equation. If we were asked to write an equation, then that's all of the work that we had to do. So we can also use this equation, another helpful thing, in any word problem. So if we have a word problem asking about this situation, we can use the equation to help us answer word problems instead of trying to find the intercept and then using that slope-intercept equation. So in this video, we went over what point-slope form is and how point-slope form can be a little bit easier than trying to keep working our way backwards to get to the y-intercepts. Especially if it's far away from the y-axis, it can take a lot of work.